So start with the discussion questions. So the first thing is to briefly describe your student. So include the age, the grade level, disability or disabilities, primary language if they use augmentative or alternative communication, or any other additional important information. Does anyone want to start?
I can start.
Sure, go ahead, Ku.
My person is she's diagnosed with language and communications, and she also deaf. So like she's diagnosed with Bixler syndrome. So she also deaf. So she in a classroom she only use sign language to communicate and express her emotion or gesture. You can hear me well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then she did say about her age, but I would say she's around second grade, so maybe she's 8, or maybe she's probably around 7 or 8, or maybe 9. Because I feel like she's in second grade, like the way she communicates and talks. So and then there's in a classroom during the mainstream classroom, she will have interpreter with her to interpret between her and the teacher and her classmates. So she always have that, and then because she didn't use any hearing aid, although she's deaf, but the only thing she uses is the communication with sign language interpreter in the classroom. And then she also in her special ed too, and then she she have a lot of communications problems because of the language barrier. What else do we have to say? I think that's it.
Perfect. Haley, you want to go next?
Sure. So my student, his name was Riley. He was 7 years old. He was diagnosed with autism, and it didn't really say anything about academics or anything, so I would assume he's in about second grade if he's 7 years old. And then he doesn't use any augmentative or alternative communication.
Awesome. All right. So my student is actually a family member of mine, but I changed her name. So her name is Amanda. She is 19 years old. She's a freshman at a university. So her grade level is 13th grade, I guess you would say. Disability or disabilities. So she has autistic characteristics, although she's not necessarily diagnosed unannounced, but she has a lot more communication. She's very, very good academically with book smart kind of things, but when it comes to social skills, communication skills, she really struggles. To give you an example, if we're at a restaurant, she can't choose from an entire menu, so we have to limit those options. It's the same way kind of in the classroom. If there's options for students to do something, she kind of has to have that limited option. And currently she has had issues with reading in the fact that she says that the words kind of jump out at her. So she's been using transparent color sheets to go over the top of printed text, so that she can read those appropriately. And along with that, she's been receiving actually therapy for her eyes, just movement exercises. And she's also a very routine person. So I guess that could be characteristics. She's very routine. And so she has actually shown improvement in that because of her taking that seriously and kind of doing that every day. So those are her main disability or characteristics. Primary language, English. She does not use any sort of augmentative alternative communication. She is able to communicate. It's just how she communicates that's a problem for her. And then any additional important information, she's very, very artistic and she loves to express herself through that way. So I think that's something that's very unique and interesting about her is even though she won't necessarily start a conversation with you, she's very observant and she loves to do art. She loves to do music. And when you put her in her element, she could talk for days. So that's just a little bit about my student. The next question is, describe the social stories, instructional plans or SIPs, and lesson plans that you chose for your student. Why did you choose these? Ku, do you want to start again?
Okay, for my, let me start with system medicine or SIP. So my SIP, because she just kind of, she said she struggled with her reading and math because of how she has to go back and forth with the teacher and her and her. So she's like really relying on her vision when she learned in a mainstream classroom. So I did a reading vocabulary, and then I did it with prompting, and it's just like try to focus on like guidance so that she can like do well, because she can like, it's really difficult for her to work with the whole classroom group. So I want to break down into a small group with her, and then just like brainstorm what she have to do, like, and I teach the I do, we do, and then you do, and then like just like correct them for the feedback, just like give them the correction or praise, and just like slowly like fade out the graduate release SDTs model them. So just try to, because she's in the second grade, so I just like to teach her how to like sort of words, because when what in the videos she just like copying down what is on the text without knowing the actual meaning for the words. So I think like just like having her do the reading vocabulary, and then just the concept sort, and then with the meaning, I think will help her with, because they have those visuals. I don't know how much the detail we have to get into, but I'm just gonna like do a summary of each of them. As for my social skill, I focus on the classroom with her, interact with peers. So because she have a lot of like barrier with her communications and language skills, I just like have her like wait for her to speak with peer and socialize during discussion, because sometimes she can get really frustrated when her that peer can't understand her because of her sign language. That's why she say she like more comfortable with she's more comfortable in special ed classroom because her peer can communicate with really well. But during her mainstream classroom with the interpreter, she's really like really get much time to like interact back and forth with peers. And then she, when she has something to say, she really like want to like say it out, and then she kind of like get really frustrated when her peer like don't understand her. Then she in a video she say she get embarrassed because of that. So it's just really focus on her communication and socializing, exchange conversation with peer during discussion, or join join a small group, which helps her a lot. Big group is like a little bit difficult for her, and then just maintain the conversation. I choose this one because social interaction or exchange conversation with peer is important for her, and then she want her story and discussions to be heard. So when it comes to peer interaction, she can easily get frustrated, like embarrassed, because she could ask peer could understand her conversation fully. So to be able to make a conversation as like social interaction with peer, we also like need to understand and be aware of her situation and have social exchange like appropriately. So as for As for my lesson plan, I also choose communication that using the technology. Take the the AAC, those kind of technology because of her communication. And when she's like outside of the classroom without her interpreter, she can use the assistive technology to help her communicate. Let's say she's like wanna order something at the restaurant, she can write it down a note or like give it to them, or you can use the AAC like to create out that I want hash brown or something like so that, or in the even in the classroom too, because her interpreter is not always gonna be with her 24/7, so she can use that to communicate because her writing skills and her other academic skills are really she's really like have a she's really good at those. So she's just like any other like regular student, but her only problem is that she can speak or she can hear. As so she can use the AAC to communicate.
Wonderful. Hey, would you like to go?
Right.
Perfect.
So for my first SIP, I did hand washing. I chose this because obviously that's an important task to know today. And I feel like that would be something that's important for him to know at his age. What else? Social stories. So the first one I did was titled When I Get Mad, and then it has the steps for when he would get mad. And I picked this because in the video, his mom made a comment about people taking the time to understand him. And if you take the time to understand him, then he will understand you. And I thought this would be a good social story because I thought he might get frustrated when he isn't being understood, which makes sense, I thought. And then the second one was being a good friend. And I picked this social story because he talks a lot about friends in his video and how much he loves friends. My second SIP that I did was on tying shoes. I thought this would be a good task for his age as well, as most students are learning to tie their shoes around this age or maybe even earlier, but I felt like that would be something that would be good for him. And then the lesson plan starters. The first one I did was the graphic organizers for comprehension and reading. And I picked this because obviously comprehension is something that is tough to like teach and learn, but I thought especially for him because he's so full of energy all the time and it's hard for him to sit still, so I feel like reading would be a more difficult task for him. And then the second lesson plan starter that I found was on crossing the street. This was one that I've never seen as like a lesson plan topic before, but I thought that would be super beneficial for students that are around that age and like starting to play outside by themselves. And I also thought that would be one that would be good for community-based instruction. And I also thought that would be good for him because you're not stuck in the classroom at that point. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I kind of broke it up by each checkpoint. So the first one that we did, I started my task analysis on how to make slime because she likes to be artistic, she likes to be tactical and use her hands. And going along with, especially comparing her to students in my class, in like the classroom, slime was something that really was like a soothing technique. And so being kind of overstimulated in the classroom is something that I think that it would benefit her. And we've also made slime together, so it kind of just worked out. And then for social stories, I did how to work with a partner on a project. So working on that communication skill of peer-to-peer kind of relationship. How do I work on a project with someone? And that's a skill then that you can use in college that I think that she would have more of a problem with, is just learning how to build a relationship from peer-to-peer to complete an academic skill. And then the second social story was how to work with a partner on a project. So more than that is now how can I work with in a group setting, if it's just like a partner setting, but how can I work in like a group setting, or how can I complete a project that extends outside of like the classroom period? So it's kind of maybe an easier skill for them to be able to communicate in the classroom setting, but what about after when you have to kind of adapt and do things outside of the classroom? And then I did an SIP on reading fluency. So I wrote this SIP for Amanda using one of the academic weaknesses that she has. And then that I think that her reading fluency without supports was one thing that I could focus on. So this was kind of a great thing to implement for the SIP. And then for my different skills, I chose the lesson plan based off of an academic skill as well as a social skill. So the first lesson plan starter that I had was using peer tutoring to teach reading fluency. So this kind of focused on A, her academic weakness, as well as B, her social weakness. So again, kind of like that peer-to-peer interaction, implementing that communication piece, and then also having her reading fluency be worked on. I don't think that it's not necessarily can she read or can she not read, but I think without the supports, her reading fluency is something that she could have worked on, and that was kind of the purpose behind this lesson plan. And then the second lesson plan starter, I think, was more purposeful for Amanda. It's hard with half of screen. So then for her social skill lesson plan starter, it was more based off of, it was using role play to teach workplace social skills. So this one I thought like hit the nail on the head for her, but learning how to role play and walk through, especially using that kind of artistical component to it, and walking her through that so she knows and is guided on how to establish and maintain eye contact. It talks about waiting to speak until everyone finishes or giving appropriate verbal responses. And that's something that I think that Amanda really would benefit from. Describe the strengths that your student has. Kut, do you want to go ahead?
Yes. One of the biggest because she's just like any other regular kid, just know how to take care of herself. So she will like wake up in the morning. She know how to brush her teeth. She know how to like get dressed, just like any other kids. And she love to interact with others, but I wouldn't say that she's like, super good at. But when she is like, she's really good at. So she loves like making others happy, or she know how to like communicate with the help of her interpreters or like, any guidance that she might need. But other than her communication language skill, she's like really good at taking care of herself, just like any other kids. And I'm also just gonna like describe the barriers that she have in the classroom. The biggest barriers that she have is like she have to, because she's like only rely, not only, but she rely deeply on her vision. She have a big barrier to be like try to like stay focused on tests, because she's struggling with focus on like multiple tests, because in the story she mentioned that she have to focus back and forth. She have to listen. She have to like watch her teachers what she's doing, and also interpret that within a second. And then she have to write down, and she have to like do with solve problems all this day. That's why reading and math become like one of her like two of her like weekends like academics class, because she have to do all of these at the same time, and then she can't like really keep up as a whole class. So that is that's the biggest barriers. And then was there so we can prevent that. Yeah, that thing, those barriers that with multiple tests at one time with and with short amount of time that she have to do everything in one time. Just imagine for a second grader to do everything, to multitask with the limit time they give it to her, so that those barriers can be overcome by breaking us the lecture into a small session, or instead of lecture in a big groups, uh, teachers can just like have her work with small groups, or like break it down, or just have her know the lecture or the lesson plan ahead of time, so that she can look over what she's need to do, and so that she will have like less time to multitask, because she already might know like what is expected of her like during the lesson plan. That's why she probably struggling. And then also she because of the multitask, she can really focus well. So she need a lot of breaks, or like during lesson, during like 45-minute lesson class, she needs a 5-minute break in like every like 15 minutes or 20 of the lesson plan, because because she multitasks. She working a lot with her brain, her hand, her vision, and everything. So she also need a lot of break. So yeah, that is like her weakness, or one of the biggest barriers that she faced in school. That she can also overcome by like, working one-on-one with her, and or like in a small groups, so that she can like, learn more. Like in a big group, in a big group discussions, she might not have the opportunity to share her story because of the language, the communication barrier.
Okay. So for some strengths, I put for Riley, he loves to talk. He was talking and talking throughout the whole video. Um, he's very active and he loves to move around. There were so many times throughout the video where they would just stop and like let him get up and move around a little bit, and then they'd get back into their questions that they had for him. He's extremely friendly and so happy, and that was some things that I noticed about his strengths in the video. Again, it didn't really get into like any academic. It was just kind of him and his home life, so I just kind of assumed some of the academic stuff. But some barriers I thought he would have. So I definitely feel like he has the short attention span. I think you can give him breaks throughout the day. Um, give him recess time, any time for him to move around. Otherwise, I don't think he will focus very long. Another thing I think he would struggle with is transitions. So you might give him reminders before switching so he's prepared for those transitions. The comprehension issue in reading, or just reading in general, you could do the graphic organizers for that, or do one-on-one reading with him. That was something his mom mentioned, was one-on-one attention is really good for him. And then again, overstimulation, his mom mentioned that in the video as well. So any one-on-one time that he can get would be really helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As far as Amanda goes, again, like her strengths, she's very artistic. She's very knowledgeable about certain things that she's interested in. So she's very, very smart academically and is able to perform at her level. And that's a really great strength for her. And she loves to learn about things, love history, love a lot of academic subjects. But she also is very knowledgeable about kind of like random things that she's really, really interested. But I think that's still a strength for her and is still something that makes her unique and is awesome about her. And then using that with her artistic abilities is something that she's really, really great with. Some barriers that she has, again, I mentioned the reading fluency and being able to read without using sort of supports. And then again, the communication is something that is very, very important, and something that is a really huge barrier for her. That's also coming from my perspective as being a family member and someone that's known her her entire life. I can't imagine her being able to communicate with someone that she's kind of just met. And so if she struggles a little bit to talk and relate with her family, I'm sure that it's a barrier for her in going to be for her job someday in the community. And then, even at college, having roommates, that's something, you live with someone, and having that peer-to-peer relationship is really a barrier for her. So going off of that, something that you can use in the classroom, keep implementing the color, the transparent sheets to over her text for reading, as well as the eye exercises, because those have been a great improvement. I can understand a student that uses eye exercises and doesn't really practice them, and it not being a support that would help them, but it really has benefited her in the classroom. So that's something for her reading. And then for her communication skills, this is something that I've tried to work on her with, but allowing for more maybe after school activities, or allowing for extracurricular opportunities for her to be able to not feel pressured in like an academic setting in the classroom, to kind of force her into something. Although there are supports like small group work that can be with the help of a teacher, if the teacher is working with a couple of students, or with group and peer projects. But then also could be outside of the classroom. One thing that I think she would really benefit from is having a teacher invite her and a couple of friends for lunch, and just relating to her on that level outside of academics. I think that's something that she would be really great for, because that's how I relate to her. And then just working on, I really like that lesson plan about implementing role play in the classroom of how to handle certain situations. And I think that that's something that grows with her. I don't think it's a support that necessarily is specific to her age or her grade level. I think that that's something that even you could use with other students that have characteristics of autism, that can grow with you as you learn new skills and you're working at school, but then you go into the workforce and get a job someday. So then the last portion is going to be talking about similarities and differences we notice between our case study students, and what you learn overall about individuals with moderate or severe disabilities and the challenges they face.
I think we heard a lot about the communication that we all have is similar, because I think all of our case study students or person are struggle with communication in some ways.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I also heard some similarity with me and Haley. Like they can get frustrated easily because of the communication skill, and the reading. We heard a lot about that. Some reading difficulties.
Going off of your getting frustrated thing too, I think that the behaviors of my student or my case study, I think that she maybe gets frustrated but doesn't necessarily express it. And I think that that also has showed me that the wide range of disabilities for students, the way that they express frustration can be so different. It can be inside and not externally exposed. And I think that for some students, it's just easier for them to express their emotion that way. But especially with my student, I'm sure she's in the same as your case study students, but that's just another thing. And that kind of leads into what I learned about individuals in general with moderate and severe disabilities is after doing the SIP, the lesson plans, the task analysis, the social stories, just the amount of work that goes into finding specific details and needs and strengths for students, and then how you have to then apply that to the classroom. It's just like the fingerprint thing, just how everyone is so different, and then finding a support for students that are different, that has to be different too. It has to be like the universal design for learning. That's just something that I learned about how unique they are and how uniquely created they were. And that's just something that's really fantastic, and how cool that we get to be a part of that.
Yeah. Another thing I kind of said in my reflection was you'll have students that might be diagnosed with the same disabilities or similar disabilities, but you are doing all these assessments and forms and everything for them that will be totally different and customized to who they are. And I thought that was really neat too.
Yeah. There's about 9 minutes left, but the last part, what did you learn about the potential of individuals with moderate and severe disabilities? Like, what are they able to do? And then we also learned in class a lot about instructional planning for students with disabilities, like writing the social stories, task analysis, and the SIPs. So discuss how you would use this knowledge in your future working with individuals with or without disabilities. So the potential, what they can do, and then how can you apply that to your future classroom?
I feel like they can do so much more than what most people would think that they can do just by looking at them. But when you know or like get to know them, you recognize all of the abilities that they actually do have, and you just have to find the different ways for them to express those abilities, I guess. And then how you would use it. I guess obviously you're going to use all the forms and everything for students that do have disabilities, but even ones that don't, I feel like you can still use social stories or task analysis for different tasks for them, I would say.
Ku, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think like it's just for what I heard for you guys and for my case study student, they are very they're very active. They really want to talk with others and want to communicate. So I think we like get to see that, or other students get to see that. I think they would really love to. They only have like those little barriers that keep them from doing what they love to do. So they really like just want to be friends with others, talks. I just like they're really happy. They're really happy with that. So I think just like provide those group peer talk or like buddy or someone like that who helps them with this, that they're really happy like, to be part of it. I would say.
Yeah. I would say then going off of that, the potential, I feel like they have to really do anything, if I, want to say that, is especially being a teacher and teaching students with disabilities, it's part of our job to find a way for students to be able to do something. So an academic skill, a social skill, I think that the potential for students is pretty much, kind of open-ended. And I think that students can really do anything. And so that's something that has come a long way since, before IDEA and all these things. So I think that that's actually really fantastic that they have the potential to really do anything, the potential to learn, the potential to practice a new skill. And that's really awesome. And then how can I apply everything that I've learned, in the future? Well, first of all, like, Haley, you said that you'd use the plans and supports when you're teaching students with disabilities. But then also how we modify and accommodate and give supports to students with disabilities is the same way that we can use it with students without disabilities. Specifically, we look at the tiered intervention model. If you have that universal kind of intervention, you're always implementing things to help students and help them learn. So I think that in general, everything that we learned, especially in this assessment, but this course, is something that we can apply just to design learning for all learners. So awesome. And I think that, go ahead.
Just really want to know and serve your student well in order to implement all those recommendations, just like their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other final thoughts at all?
I don't think so.
I'm good.
All good? Okay. Awesome. We did great. I had an awesome time. Awesome semester with you guys. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Have a good Christmas break.
You too.
We'll see you later.